Hi, welcome to Storytime with Ellie, and I am Ellie. This is my first podcast, and we're here to help entrepreneurs on their journey and many different discussions, topics we will be discussing on this podcast of Storytime with Ellie. But first, we need to know a little bit about myself and where I come from and what I have done on my journey and how it got me to where I needed to be. But to help me tell my story, I want to welcome my co-host, Phil.
Ellie, it's a pleasure to have you here. You know, we met a few months ago and you already have an incredible story. So I'm like, hey, look, you need to have a podcast. And there's so many different layers that we need to dive into. And so I think this very first episode that we need to learn a little bit more about you and your journey. And then we can kind of transition into how the viewers and the listeners can benefit from watching this podcast. So first of all, so how are you?
I am doing fantastic. I am doing great. Just got through St. Patrick's Day weekend. I mean, it is Sunday, but it was a holiday weekend.
Yeah. No, I feel you. I feel you on that. I'm not really one of a party person. You know, I've been sheltered for most of my life. I just had my first shot of Patron, honestly. So
I get that. I understand that. I was actually sheltered most of my life. And I think that's what happens. You either get it on the lower end or you're getting it on the upper end. And I got mine on the upper end because the lower end, I was too focused on my work, children, and my journey. Not saying I'm done with my journey, but you know.
So Ellie, we're here today. You know, you have a very, very interesting story. So let's actually go back to the beginning. Let's hear about, where you're from and how you actually got to where you are today. So give us a little bit of history about yourself.
A lot of hard work. I graduated high school at 16 years old. They thought I was going to go off, right off way into college. And I said, I did not. I said I want to be an entrepreneur, and I want to open up businesses and be like my dad. My dad was an entrepreneur. He opened up businesses. We grew up with that. I grew up with that. My mom was a stay-home mom. She raised the family. And
so how was your relationship with your parents? Because normally when you hear that story, that's kind of traditional. You know what I mean? Like the dad worked and the moms kind of stayed at home. So as a kid, you said you kind of leaned towards your dad. How was your relationship with your dad compared to your mom?
I think I had a great relationship with both of them, but I think later, I don't know how to say this. As a woman, and I'm not the only one, we struggle a lot of times with this, that we want to be entrepreneurial, we want to be business women, but then we have that nurturing mom side, like, oh, we got to stay home and raise the kids. I come from an era that most women did do that. They stayed home and raised kids and then went out and did their work. I kind of struggled a little bit between the two, where I wanted to be entrepreneurial. I wanted to be like my dad, but at the same time, I wanted to be like my mom. And I think I mastered it, and I became both of them.
So can you? Yeah, absolutely. So can you tell me about that moment when you're like, I want to do this? Was it after you graduated high school at 16, or was it before that?
I think it was all my life. There's something you're born with that has this drive, and to know that we wanted more. You wanted more than just to work in a just, I don't want to say an average job, because every job is important.
I mean, you can say that though.
Well,
there are average jobs out there.
I know, but I'm not trying to throw stones at anything to say that.
No, you're not. But you're not throwing stones.
Yeah. Well. So anyway, yeah. I just know I always wanted to own my own businesses because I was very, I don't want to say control freak, but strong-minded, strong-willed, always starting projects. I was always the initiator. This is as growing up as a kid, and I just always knew I had to I just knew I was going to be an entrepreneur, and that was just me.
Now, did you get a lot of, I guess, flack because you? Let's be honest, you're a woman, and most entrepreneurs back then, they're all men, right? So,
correct.
Was there a point in time where you're like, man, am I doing the wrong thing? Because I'm sure probably a lot of people were like, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this. So, can you tell me about any of the negative feedback that you had? That you got?
I got well, I'm gonna just fast forward. I think a lot of the negativity I got was when I went into the automotive towing business. I think there was some negativity regarding a woman-owned business being a towing company. I think,
Yeah, that's got to be super, super hard
mm,
because being a female business owner, and especially a female business owner in an industry like the towing business, that's got to be something that's like, whoa, whoa, you're a unicorn out there, right?
yeah, totally. Or what do you call it? The elephant in the room or something? I
Yeah,
don't
that's what I say. You're a unicorn. You're a
know.
unicorn in that
Unicorn.
business.
Oh, yeah. But what just to start there, I had hair salons. Opened up hair salons. I opened up beauty supply houses with the hair salons. Back then, it didn't even exist. So I was always doing things that were, I don't want to say out of the, not a normal thing, but like, why are you doing that? Why are you taking the hard road? And I said, it's just, I did things that were unique. I think that was part of it.
So were you bored with normalcy? I'm gonna ask you that
Yeah,
question.
yeah, I think I am. I don't like rules.
Okay.
um, I prefer to be, I don't want to say ahead of the game.
No, say it. You prefer to be ahead
I
of the
prefer to be
game.
ahead of the game. I
Yeah.
do. Uh, a little bit about, I guess, my journey. If you want me to go into some of this,
Yeah, please
um,
let's hear about it.
I opened up when I graduated at 16 years old. I went to cosmetology school, got my hairdresser's license. I would say within 2 years of being out of school, I opened up my first hair salon. Then I opened up my second hair salon. So I opened up two hair salons. I want to talk about the age. I was probably 21, and I had two salons already.
Mhm.
Um, Met my first husband. We were young. He owned a towing company that I learned a lot about that industry. So I helped him and his family run the business. Um, Stop saying uh,
You're fine. So how was it like being when you met your first husband and you're already in this mindset that you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to do this, you want to do that. How was that relationship being, versus traditional? Was he opposed to you being a part of the business? Did he just want you to stay home? How was that knowing that your mindset and your ability, how did you manage that?
I think what good question. I think what happened was um, that nurturing mom kicked in because I was in his business, helping him run his business and bringing in a lot of money for the company. I learned it, picked it up well, and then when I decided to have a baby, I got pregnant. I'm like, oh my God, the nurturing mom kicked in. I thought I had to stay home, raise the child, and I was torn because I wanted to do that. It's like, oh my God, I feel like I have to do that. That's the right thing to do. But something was nagging at me that I wanted to do, stay into business. But the bottom line was I wanted that to be a decision that I was to live with and make, and it wasn't. Um, he at first was okay with me working part time in the company and being a mom, but then outside interference, he didn't want that no more. He's like, no, you need to work every day with me at the shop. You need to help me with the company. This is where you belong. Anyone can raise a child, but no one can run this
Whoa,
company.
whoa, 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 hold on.
Yeah.
He said anyone can raise this.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, that's not true.
Well, that was
The mentality
the
back then.
mentality.
Wow. Yeah.
Anyone can raise a child,
So
and that's when our fight started to really
hmm,
kick. And I'm like, whoa, somebody's telling me what I need to do, and no one's going to tell me that I can't raise my kid, or if I want. And that's another thing. I'm probably hard with rules. Like I said, no one's going to tell me that I can't raise my child, and that's what I want to do.
yeah.
And I think that escalated into a lot of different negative, obviously, items. And he wanted a divorce. So my son wasn't even 2 years old, and he came home and said, "If you can't run this company with me and be what I need, I want a divorce." And I said, "Well, you know, pick your battle." No, and he did. He walked out and left us.
Wow. So he actually asked for the
Yeah,
divorce.
yeah,
That's rare. Normally, I think there's a statistic out there of 80% of the divorces that women are the ones who initiate that.
absolutely. And we'll
So
talk about that at another
yeah.
podcast.
So what was your initial reaction, right, when he said I want a divorce coming from a man's mouth? As a woman, what did that say to you?
I need to survive. I have to put on my fighting gloves. I needed to. I fought to be able to raise my child. Right. I walked away from his company because he threw me out. So now I have to do what I need to do. I need to raise my child and do the right thing. And I needed to make money on my own as well because obviously we were thrown out in the street. And I did it. I did it.
Wow. Okay. So you said
yeah.
you said you did it. So as a young mother, what was your first step to bounce back? Like, what was your first win? What was your first win? Tell me about your first win that happened as a single mother.
Well, I'm going to say, well, I don't know if it was quite a win, but the first thing I did was I immediately, cause I had a hairdressing trade, I immediately went back to work. I didn't open another salon at that point. I went to work at a local salon in Wall to help support my child and myself because there was no alimony, and my son was getting $53 a week, and the man was a multimillionaire 10 times over, and I was getting $53 a week. And I said, no problem.
How does that happen though? Sorry to interrupt you, but how the hell does a multimillionaire squeak away with only $53 a week? How does that happen?
That's another podcast.
No, I didn't know.
No,
people watching are like, what? You just said he's a multimillionaire,
Yeah.
and this dude was only paying you $53. How does that work?
I mean, there's a lot of things in business that people can do because it was, like I said, it was a business that was family owned. But I didn't fight. I did not fight.
Why?
For nothing.
How come?
Because I felt that, honestly, I felt this was a company that they owned. It was a family business that they owned. It had nothing to do with me. I came in and learned a trade, or I learned a business. And in my mind, I think I mastered this business. Even though I was getting thrown out, I had the knowledge. And in fact, the day that, one of the times when my ex-husband did walk out, he had said to me that you will leave with nothing, because I basically was. But I had said to him, no, that's okay. I said, I'm going to leave with three things, and that is my dignity, my knowledge, and my son. And with these three things, I will surpass you. And I did. I did.
Okay, so you said you surpassed him. So what was your? I know you said you did the hair salon stuff, but you had another business adventure, pretty much competing. Correct?
I did. Yep.
So can you talk about
Yes, I did.
that?
I eventually, what I did was I needed to make the money because there's a lot of things he would say to me that he was trying to take my son. He would say that I won't achieve anything. I'll never be anything. He said a lot of abusive,
horrible, abusive things. So he sounds like a dick.
He was quite a dick. He was quite a dick.
So yeah.
What else? He offered to buy my son for me. He said,
Whoa.
Yeah. He said, you'll never be able to support him like I can. So I think he offered him like 50,000, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Sure.
Wow. Okay. Now that's something that I've never heard of.
Yeah.
Before.
He offered me 50,000. He said, I'll give you like $50,000, and I'll take I'll take him and I can raise him. I know he would never raise him correctly. So what I did was I ended up with a business manager because I said I'm definitely going to do a towing business. I decided at that point I'm going to compete with this motherfucker.
Now can I ask? Now let me. I like how you just said that. Now, did you start the towing company because it's what you've already done, or was it because you wanted to do it in spite of him?
I think it's a combination of both because I realized that's where the money is, and that's where the money is, and I know that's where I need it to be for my son. So when I was able to, and I'm sure there was a lot of animosity as well, because now I know a business that I can compete with this motherfucker, plain English. You can cut that out. And,
no, we ain't cutting that out, baby.
Okay. So I can compete with this person because I'm not stupid, like he would portray me as. So you know what? I'm going to give him a run for his money. So I went out and bought a used truck. This was the journey. I bought a used truck that was dilapidated, but it worked.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was a tow truck, right?
It was a tow truck.
Okay.
And he had all his fancy trucks. He had probably 25 tow trucks. And he laughed at me, threw a nickel at me. He said, "This is what you're worth." And it was just not nice.
Wow, what a piece of trash. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Where am I at here? Woohoo.
No, so you were saying you bought these trucks and you were competing against
Yeah,
him.
I bought one truck, and I remember him bringing my son home to me one day and saying, "Oh my God, you built a homemade truck," and he called it a really nasty name that I won't even use on the air.
Yeah,
He
so
made
it's
fun. He
not.
was making fun of it.
So this was in the same city?
Yeah.
Ooh,
So,
wow. So you pretty much did the whole McDonald's and then Wendy's across the street. or Walgreens
yeah,
and
I did.
CVS
I
across
did.
the street from each other.
I did, and I think what helped me and my business succeed was I knew his weaknesses in his company, and I knew what people did not like. And there were a lot of things, and I think that's what I marketed my business on, was his negative side, like the things that people didn't like about their company or his company. I think what I did was, I'm gonna, I'm not gonna be him. I'm gonna work the opposite side and take his weaknesses and make them into my strengths to make this company and to what it would be.
So it seems like you kind of combined your entrepreneurial side with your motherly side. So I'm only
exactly
going on
what
a
I
limb.
did.
I'm only going on a limb here and saying that the areas that he may have been weak with would be customer service,
Right.
and I guess the actual relationships with the clients. I'm going on a limb here? Am I
Yes,
correct?
exactly.
Okay, so that's where you kind of stepped in and you kind of filled that blank, that void, because you already knew the industry. So you're like, okay, well, I'm going to take my skills in this part and then combine it, and then that's how your business became successful.
Correct. Um, I mean, even I never ever, as strange as it sounds, as much as he knocked me down and would say negative things, I never ever would fight back with him like I'm this and I'm that and I'm going to be. Never. I always thought in my mind, in due time, in due time.
You've heard the term where they say, make your moves in silence.
No, I never heard that.
You never heard that?
No.
Okay, so the term is, don't tell people your next move.
Mhm.
Make your moves, be successful, then they see what you did.
And I think that's what I
feel
did.
like I feel
Yeah,
that's
I did.
exactly what you did. So we were talking off air. You eventually kind of ran them out of business, right? So can you tell me
I did, yeah.
tell me a little bit what happened with that?
As the company grew, and I didn't do this alone. Obviously, I did have a partner.
Of course.
His name is Sean. He used to work for the other company where I was.
Mhm,
He was worked for my ex-husband. He was their manager for a short time, and then what I did, back it up. When I decided, okay, this is it, I'm going to do this towing company, I had contacted Sean and said, hey, listen, this is what I want to do. I want to start a towing company. I had the hair salon. I did open another hair salon. So I was, financially, I was really like, how do you want to say it? Like stretching it. Because
Yeah,
now
you're stretching it thin because
stretching
your
it.
time and your money was thin.
Yeah, I was trying to, I'm running this hair salon with a supply house. I'm raising my son, which I still managed to do. I had people working for me, so quality time with him. I didn't have to sacrifice that. So I was doing what I really wanted to do, be an entrepreneur and then still raise my son without giving him up. So where am I at here?
Yeah,
Back me
no,
up.
it's just I want to know about your relationship with your son. All right, can we go into that just a little bit, if that's okay?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
First of all, how was your relationship? How was his relationship with his dad? Does he know about all this stuff? Because growing up, I know a story about my dad from my point of view, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I know a story about my dad from my mom's point of view, right? So does he know what happened? And if he does, how does he feel about that?
Okay. Good question. What I did was, and I've actually told clients, because I'm also a divorce coach
And we'll get to that.
and relationship coach.
That's a part of the podcast too.
I know, but I actually tell people, and this is what I did do, was I documented everything like a diary. And it helps you emotionally get through a lot of turmoil in your life. Is write it down. Write it down. If there was a bad day, I would write it down. I would say this happened, that happened, not realizing what it was going to lead up to. I never once ever talked about the ex-husband at all to my son. I let everything ride its course. Anything I would try to encourage them to be, go with your dad. Never, ever, ever, ever. I know this, I don't want to sidetrack it, but don't ever talk negative about the other spouse. And I did not. As bad as it was, the fighting we did on the road with the towing, we fought like cats and dogs. It was bad. It never came into my home. I would never say, your father was an asshole today. He fucking took a wreck from me. You know, he did this, he did that, shut me down, took me off a tow list. I would never ever throw anything negative about his father. I let it ride out.
How come? How come?
I didn't think it was my place because you got a young child. You have and he was only under 2, so he grew up not having us together as a husband, you know, mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to taint or you. They have to form their own opinion on the other parent, or if they have one, if they don't have one, it's got to be up to that child to see. Getting back, and I can sidetrack. Getting back to the diary, I would write down, you know, things that happened, incidents, you know, when he didn't take him home or he didn't have him, he was sitting with babysitters. He, you know, locked me out, just things that were not nice, not to rehash. Everything was documented in a diary. So what was really strange about this was when my son was 14 years old, he went through a lot of
Teenage angst.
yes, but his caused by his dad. His dad had remarried a woman with 3 children. Nothing against that, but like I guess again, I stepped out, so I didn't really know what was going on. But you know, they made my son's bedroom was in the basement. You know, things like it was like my son was like the stepchild, obviously, of the stepchild, and maybe I shouldn't bring this up right now, but this is kind of what happened to him. But I didn't even know it. But there was a lot of turmoil in that home with my son, to where when he came home one day, he's like, I don't want to go there anymore. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And when he explained to me, and then he goes, I also want to ask you some questions about your divorce with dad. What happened?
As a 14-year-old,
As a 14-year-old.
Wow, that's super mature.
Oh, no, because, well, he's an old soul. So this is what he was like, what happened? And I'm like, wow, like almost like 14 years of, you know, how do you explain this? You don't. I literally went into the safe and took out this diary that I had documented for all these years. And I said, read it.
Mm.
And when he read it, he says, this is all I needed to know. And in that were things and stories that happened that he remembered. But he heard a different side from the father. You don't lie. You never lie. And, you know, his father would say something else when there it is now. Years later, he's reading what was said, you know, what was done. And sadly enough, there was a lot of things that led up to him and his father parting in ways. He didn't want to go there anymore. And I couldn't force him. And he ended up not going over there. He tried later years remaining friends with his dad in ways of, you know, my son got married. He invited his father to the wedding. His father then couldn't come to the wedding because he was sick. My son had a baby a couple years back. He was supposed to come see the baby. He never came see the baby. So my son did not take him out of his life. He just kind of, you know, he grew up. He grew up and was doing something. And I kept encouraging him to keep the father in his life. I said, you need to, you know, don't be, you know, he's got his thing, but, you know, you never want to regret or resent not talking to him. You want to be able to, you know, say, I did what I can. Not, you know, everyone's got their stories, right? So this, you know, do what you can. And he tried. Now, today, he does not talk to his father because after he set up a time to come see his baby and he never showed up, that was it.
Yeah.
Done. He will never talk to him again. 2 years ago, his son is 4 now. 2 years ago, the ex called me, begging me once again to please get him to call me. Please get him to do this. I need you to talk to him. And I said, I can't talk anymore. I've done so much, but I'll try. And his famous thing was the ex was writing letters. You know, he'd always write letters. I said, do what you always did best. Write your letter. Write your letter. And I think that was one of the best things he could have done because in that letter he wrote to my son was able to see what had happened, and his father was asking him for forgiveness. And I think there was a lot in that letter where we thought maybe it would open the door. It closed the door even harder.
But do you think that was probably the better decision? Like,
yeah.
You ever hear the term that people kind of show who they are, even if it's indirectly?
Yes, and that's exactly what happened because he explained what happened. He was sorry for that. So at least my son knew it wasn't him.
Of course.
And it's weird that it would even come down that way. And that was it. To this day, he will not talk to his father.
Wow. So yeah, that definitely would shape who you are as a person and kind of give you some validation with why we're doing this podcast. And I think what you mentioned about the whole diary thing, I want to just rewind just a little bit about that.
Hmm.
Do you remember your very first entry? I know it's a long time ago, but do you remember the first thing you ever wrote in there? Or what actually made you pick something up and write in it?
I think it was more emotional to help. It helps you understand what's going on in your life when you write it down, and when you read it, it's like it's there in front of you. Not only in your head, it's there in front of you. The first thing I ever wrote, I I can't quite remember. I think it's when things started to go bad in our relationship, when he was pulling on me and fighting with me to do this and do that. And I think I started writing stuff down then, to help myself understand better and making sure I'm making the right decisions. But when you write things down like that and you go over them, you start to really see there's something to this. There's definitely, I think, a great connection to write things down and go over it and over it. And it helps make decisions as well.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a completely random question, but I think it does apply to you, and I think it does apply to the podcast as well.
Hmm.
When people are growing up, and they either become successful or whatever, do you think what? Okay, so what matters more? Do you think the positive aspects in their lives or the negative reactions apply more? What shapes them more, the positive or the negative?
I think it's both.
You think it's a blend of both?
Yeah, you need what I would. I'm just might not be answering your question correctly, but I always said in my life, and I think many of us, I had to have bad, and bad always turned to good. I had to have negativity, negative things, and I got through them knowing that these are the bumps in the road. I'm going to get through this because we get so much shit thrown at us. When you're going through things, that it's like, fuck, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to get through this? But knowing at the end, you'll be a winner. You will come through it. It's getting to that point. So I think there's a lot of negativity. You need a lot of everything, but you need to stay positive and focused. And I think, and I might be on a tangent right now, but I think what helped me stay focused was I channeled all of my animosity that I had going through my divorce, and I channeled it into being productive.
So that was a motivator.
Yeah, yeah. And looking at my son, knowing that he had me, and I just knew he was only going to have me. That this man was off kilter. He was off. He definitely wasn't off. And I knew I had to raise this child to the best of my ability, and I did. And I think, and like I said, channeling. You have to channel your animosity, any kind of, if you have hateness or you want to beat these people up when you're going through a divorce, don't do it. Take all that anger and challenge it into something positive. Whether it be, you got to be creative, turn it around. Because there's a lot of, right, people do different things when they're going through a divorce. There's a lot of hate. You
Yeah.
want to do this, don't take it to hate. Try to push it into something that's going to, that energy, make it more creative to bring you into a better position or a better place in life.
Okay, so let's fast forward just a little bit, right? You already have a successful business now. How I want to dive into the relationship part now,
Mm-hmm.
right? How is it like dating and relationships, being a single mother, entrepreneur as well? I want to hear about. Was it tough to date because nowadays, you see these on the internet all the time. Oh, I can't date a woman with money, because they don't essentially need us, right? As men. How was dating back then? Was it
Uh,
difficult for you?
Honestly, I did not date. Um,
Why?
I know people are like, what? I didn't date. What I did was I mean, it wasn't that long of a time, or lengthy of a time, but I immediately, when the divorce happened, when he left me, I needed to find myself. I needed to focus on me and my son, and not date and do all that kinds of crazy stuff. And that's why I focused on opening up, starting this business. Who I ended up with my manager of my company, of the towing company. I ended up, when I reached out to him to help me get the company going, I needed someone to jump in the trucks and do all that kinds of stuff. And that's who I ended up. He was my second husband. So yeah, I didn't date.
Mm.
I stayed away from the dating scene. I just focused on raising my son and
Okay.
starting a business.
So let's see if we can apply that to current times now. As you are a relationship coach, right?
Yes.
What advice do you have to fellow women entrepreneurs who were in a similar situation? Now, do you advise them to say, "Hey, no, you really shouldn't be focused on dating," or is your situation kind of unique?
I think it's a unique situation due to the fact at the time my son was, under 2 years old, and I was in a different mindset. Today, we're older, and I was married twice. I think we know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's fine to date. Obviously, you can date, but it's a whole different world out there today on dating. And to meet, if you do have a little money, you're meeting men that this sounds really bad. It's not like, or not just for women to men, men is to women as also. I think you need to pick an equal as you or a little above, because you do meet people that are trying to hang on for a ride. And I know that sounds really bad.
Ooh, okay. Hold on. Okay.
Yeah.
When you say for a ride, do you mean like? Can you elaborate a little more? What do you mean by that?
Well, when they start asking you what you have and you got a Range Rover and you got this and you got that. Wow, you must have money. Oh, there's a certain feeling, and then it's not like. And I think there's other. Actually, I spoke to a woman the other night who kind of going through the same thing, and men go through it as well. I just think we're all,
And this is something that we're going to be talking about during the podcast.
Yeah.
One of the things is that drew me to want to produce this show for you is that we're going to hear from both perspectives.
Yeah.
I think that when you have these that are similar podcasts, I think what's going to differ us from them is that a lot of it is just argument and nothing ever actually gets solved. And so I think when we do our podcast and we have these different points of views and perspectives, I think we can be constructive, but also listen.
Correct. Yes. You don't want to walk around thinking, oh, I got more and I got this. It's not the point of who has more. I always feel, and I tell a lot of, clients and just in general, it's not the fact of the dollar amount as well. It's what you're bringing to the table. If you meet somebody has a job and they're making their money and they're working, they're doing their thing, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a beautiful thing. But and they're bringing something to the table. And I think, and that's what it's all about, is what are you going to bring to the table? We're older. We are older. You're not going to take somebody in their 40s and 50s and say, what'd you do with your life? And they're like, well, I never worked. And I know it sounds really bad, but as somebody who financially is stable, you do have to think, and not saying it is the right way to think, but you'd start to think like, is this person in it for the right reason? And I think that's where, again, being older, you do meet a lot of different types of people. You meet a lot of young, a lot of married.
Yeah. No. That I agree with you there. So I want to ask you a couple of let's have some fun here. I think we dived into quite a bit of info about yourself, and I think we got personal. So I think let's have a little fun. We can get personal too, but I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I just kind of want to hear your thoughts on those. So it'll pertain to the podcast and pertain to what we're doing as a show. So I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions, and I want to hear your first response. Okay. All right. You ready?
Okay.
Okay. Give me your thoughts on cheating in relationships.
Ooh, cheating.
Is it in this day and age? In this day and age, do you believe in monogamy? That's a better question. In this day and age, do you believe in monogamy?
I would like to say I do. There are cases that I think it's a time frame. No, I don't think. I think there's a certain period in someone's life that there is no. I don't think monogamy is out. Let me rephrase that one.
No, I get you. So you don't think monogamy is out, but I guess it applies to different.
Yeah.
Everybody's situation is different.
Everybody's situation is different. I'd like to think that there is monogamy for those who choose to be in a relationship. Like I have friends that are females that their boyfriends or husbands would never cheat on them, but they are. Or
Mm.
they might be. And I don't want to just say it like that, but you know,
No, I get you.
I think the chance of cheating is if you're married, there's probably a good 30 to 60% chance there might be some cheating. And if you're not married, and I actually looked that up one time. There were some statistics to that. If you're not married, the chances are even greater
Mm.
on cheaters.
There's less risk involved, right?
There's less risk involved. I think a lot of people are married, and the ones that are married don't want to break up the marriages because there's too much money involved. There's a lot of it's money and finance. They don't want to lose,
Mm.
and I think that's part of.
So do you think that's the biggest relationship issue between people is the money? Or do you think that so let's take cheating out of the equation, right? What do you think are the biggest reasons why people get divorced? Just your opinion.
Yeah.
It's got to be financial, right? Sex.
No, it's not even financial because I mean, my second marriage, um, we were very financially stable, very, very over the top, and that's another story. I think it was we lost one another. I'm talking about my story. I don't want to talk about everybody's. I think we lost one another in the journey
Mm.
of our success, and we probably were not really paying attention to one another as much as we probably could have. The relationship started because he was my manager, so I don't know. I just think that
But the thing is,
I
with
don't
the
know.
two of you guys, you are still friends. So I mean,
Yeah,
honestly,
they are
that
friends.
relationship is just better. You're just not married.
We're just not married
Yeah.
because I think it went back to what we were. Right, we were business partners. We were well. He was my manager, and I was, and we worked together in that. We worked together that way, and I just think he's the is the father of my daughter. Thank God, he was a great man. Probably one of the best men I've ever met in my life. As crazy as that sounds, but to be married, it just it just I didn't. It just wasn't there anymore.
No, I can completely understand exactly where you come from because some people just drift apart. It's not that anybody did anything wrong. It's just that you
Yeah,
guys
I
are
don't.
just A, just not compatible, or B, you guys are just on different paths, whether it's career, whether it's spiritual, whether it's just anything else.
And it happens. It happens. And I can remember when things were really, we were just doing our own thing. And I can remember saying, hey, Sean, I think the bus stopped. And he goes, yeah, I think it did. We were just like, okay, well, I don't think this was going to be, it just wasn't there anymore. And I don't say we outgrew each other. I mean, we had an amazing journey together, amazing compliments together. We, I mean, most people don't have what we had in a marriage that say failed and the finances because we never let the marriage failure interfere with the business. I kept the business going even to this day. Even though we weren't together anymore and everybody thought we were going to lose the company and they were all excited, oh, great, they're going to be divorced, the company's going to be gone. No, no, the company grew stronger because we didn't let our differences, even with buying him, he did buy me out from the company, but it's still, I did it in a way that everyone survived. That the company still today is successful, probably one of the largest in New York, but it still survived because we kept the business sense right. Emotional sense, no, that was over with.
Gotcha.
If I'm making any sense there.
No, yeah, you definitely made sense. So I want to ask you. I want to go back to one of the things that you said earlier. You were talking about, kind of know your worth and know what you bring to the table. How do you know what you bring to the table?
Okay, big word I use. I think I'll figure that out. How do you know what you're bringing to the table when you meet somebody? Um, you're talking to them when they have, mostly when they were older. If they have a lot of baggage and they're ripping their ex-wife apart and the kids are just like delinquent issue problem with their kids,
Hmm.
and you say, they tell you about themselves, and sometimes maybe I'm not saying they should not talk about themselves, but it scares you when they have all. It's more like baggage. Is basically what I'm saying now. I always say everyone has baggage. It depends on how heavy, whether it's going to be check in the plane or check under the plane. I probably went off the subject, but
No.
it's kind of like when you meet them and they got all these issues. When I say bring to the table, they got all these issues, and here you are, right? You're working, you've done your shit, you've done everything the way you think you should have done, and you're feeling good about yourself. And like, yeah, it would be cool to have somebody to like spend some time with and have some fun. And they're coming in like a freight train, like oh, I have this problem, I have that problem, I have that problem, and then they got like 75 girlfriends, and they all have their stories on why their marriages broke up and why. You're like, fuck, man, it's just too heavy. I just can't do this. And it's, it's heavy.
Too many red
It's heavy.
flags.
It's heavy. Yeah. red flag, one after the other. And it's heavy. And then you're like, wow.
Okay.
If they came in light, and this is another discussion we'll probably have, like I said, we ever talk about the dating. When we talk about dating, I'm going to say is if people came in and introduced themselves and you met like we did organically when we were kids, and when you met somebody, it was all like a natural feeling. Like you would say, hey, you were attracted to somebody and they were attracted to you. You would have a great conversation. And if we remember correctly, back then in the day, it was, I don't want to say it was about school, but it was about, just nonchalant things. There's so much shit today and baggage that they're coming in with all their exes and their this problem and that problem. And like, okay, all right, I hear all that, but why don't you just relax, chill out, and be natural? It's not natural today. I'm finding a lot is not natural. It's all on, what they can get from you at that point. And then there's so many people that are out there that are divorced or cheating.
Yeah.
Tons of cheaters. So it's just a crazy game right now. And I think at this stage, I would have to say the best thing, just kind of roll slow.
So you're saying that
Real slow.
Most people are maybe disingenuous with their intentions or their approach because, as we are older, like you say, we have a lot of baggage. So,
Yeah.
so what would you say? You are a relationship coach. What would you say to somebody that's around in their 40s or 50s who is single? Do you have any tips on what to look for?
I think people should just keep it natural. Keep it natural. Try to think. Maybe back in the day when you used to date, and you're talking two different things for women and men as well. You're talking like men just want to get laid. I mean, women do too. But listen to what the other person's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to what the other person is saying. When I'm going to talk about apps, okay? Let's just say about these dating apps. When you are on a dating app and you have somebody on their app saying to you they're looking for a monogamous relationship, this is what they want. Why, if you're a man, and I'm only going by this or a woman, and you want to play the field, why are you answering that call? Go on a different app. Go on. Don't answer a woman or a man that says they're looking for a relationship and
you're on a hookup app.
Right. Or you're on there saying, I'm looking for a relationship. And I've heard this so many stories over and over again. I want to get into all these, but, they're looking for a relationship. I'm looking for Mr. Right, blah, blah, blah. And then when Mr. Right comes in, she's about getting raped at the bar. And it's like, well, what happened? Well, I don't know. He walked in, started grabbing at me, and I'm like, well, what? Well, maybe you give him maybe give him a mixed signal. No, it's not. It's like, it's weird.
So Ellie, let's actually start talking about the podcast. I want to know why we're actually doing Storytime with Ellie and what we actually look forward to in the future on our future episodes.
Storytime with Ellie. Just give you try to do a quick recap. It started out with throughout my life, I've always been the go-to friend. People have always called me for answers and bada. And story time, I felt these small talks of clarity turned into story time with Ellie. And narrative therapy separates a person from their problems, and it helps them understand through story time, through stories. It helps them get better clarity on what they're going through and knowing that you're not the only one going through whatever it is the story's about. So that's kind of why I come up with the story time with Ellie.
Okay. So
Does that
what
make
kind of
sense?
yeah, of course it does. What kind of episodes should we be looking forward to? Like any topics that you want to
Yeah.
definitely dive into?
Yep. We're gonna do stories on dating. Uh, we'll talk to some different guests on their input on dating. We're gonna talk about infidelity, and we are going to also be interviewing. This is the one of the biggest things I really wanted to do was the inspirational, entrepreneurial people who have made it and their journey. I want them to come on, and I want people to hear their story on how they went from here, the bottom to the top, and what they went through to get there. Because we all have stories, everybody has a story, and I think this is what we need. This is the inspiration we need to help us move forward in our own lives. Is going through other people's narrated stories.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect point to end today's show. And I think a theme of the show is, it's crazy. Everybody has a story. Everybody's story is
Hmm.
different. I think the more stories that we hear, we'll actually find out we are kind of all
We're all the same.
the same.
We're all the
And
same. We're
yeah,
all on that path. And I always just say, hey, it's not on our destination. Well, I don't say it. Everyone says it. It's not just the destination, it's the journey. And I think anyone who has made it will say, wow, I made it. And for many of us, making it, knowing and what we had to do to get where to make it, we probably would have never taken the journey. We probably would have said, I can't do it because it's scary. It's scary. Again, we didn't dive into a lot of that,
but we'll
part of
get
it.
there. We'll get there. Just like you said,
Yeah.
it's not the destination, it's the journey. And I hope everybody who came and watched today's show understand a little bit more about Ellie and her journey. And hopefully we look forward to you all watching and downloading the show. If you haven't had a chance yet, make sure you like and subscribe and share the show to anybody who you think would be a wonderful guest or who would benefit from watching the show. So on behalf of Ellie and myself, I do want to say thank you for
Thank
watching.
you.
Ellie, say bye to everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
We'll see you
Yeah.
later.